Do you have any regrets about taking your own vision or the process with which you did take your own vision?
I don't have any regrets taking my vision. I believe I should have been born blind, and I'm happy the way I am.
Woo! Identity politics, ladies and gentlemen. People now identifying as being disabled. When will it go too far? Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, where we love to call out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants, shine the light of awareness on woke absurdities, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters. Speaking of woke absurdities, which I think stems from the tyrannical work of tyrants, there's a new trend. Identity politics. We thought it had gone far enough. Cut that off. Be who you want to be. It'll work. Just trust us. Do it. Get the blade. Hormones, you'll be good. Now people are identifying as disabled. Able-bodied people identifying as a disabled person. They're identifying as something they're not. But where it differs from like a man now saying he's a woman, these trans-abled people actually make themselves disabled. So the difference in this identity politics is they can actually become what they want to be. We saw a clip, we'll watch the rest of this, of a woman who blinded herself because she identifies as blind. There's been, I'll take a look at some other reports after this video, but there's people who are cutting their limbs off because they identify as an amputee. There's people using wheelchairs. It is absolutely horrendous, my friend. And it's easy for us now to sit here and say, these are mentally ill people. They don't need to blind themselves. They don't need to cut their arm off. What they need is help. It's so easy to say that. It's politically correct. We can actually say that. But the same ideology is going on in the gender ideology. The difference is it's politically incorrect to say the same thing, like calling the same thing, politically incorrect to do that. And not only is it politically incorrect, it's hateful, it's phobic, when in fact it's not. So much of it is people who need internal help not getting it, and they're harming themselves as a way of trying to feel comfortable being in their own skin. With that said, let's take a look at this clip of this now blind person on Dr. Phil. Which, quick side note, forgive the audio. It's a little bit, you'll hear some fuzz to it, but it's obviously just Bill Gates using technology trying to censor us. That's exactly what it is. So I ask for your forgiveness.
Do you have any regrets about taking your own vision or the process with which you did take your own vision?
I don't have any regrets taking my vision. I believe I should have been born blind, and I'm happy the way I am.
She doesn't look happy. I genuinely believe she does not feel happy. Like there's nothing about, like happiness is an emotion, it's energy in motion. There's nothing about her that exudes any level of happiness. She looks like she's incredibly drugged. Wouldn't surprise me if she's on a lot of psychiatric medication. So I don't think she's happy. I think she tells herself she's happy. She's obviously now telling other people she's happy to justify her attempt to escape herself. And by the way, like she feels like she should have been born blind. The reality is you weren't born blind, therefore you should not have been born blind. If you remotely believe in God's will, God doesn't make mistakes. Like God's like, oh, I was actually gonna kind of screw up your eyesight, forgot to do it. Would you mind taking care of it for me? So there's a big difference between what we feel should happen and what the reality actually is. A mentally stable person can distinguish between what they want and what is. A mentally unstable person, not so much. To the degree that you reject reality is the degree that you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to have internal peace. But learning to accept reality, of course, like influence reality whatever way you can. Like if you feel like you should be rich and you're not, you can influence that reality. You can work harder, you can start a business, you can proactively do things. But when you're not rich, but you feel as though you should be rich, you're gonna be in a living hell. Living hell is fighting reality, which is it's a fight you can't win. You can influence reality with some things, the amount of money, your health, your fitness. But when it comes to like, dude, I feel like I should have been born a 7-foot-tall Eskimo with black skin, blue eyes, and blue hair. A mentally sane person understands realities that they can't influence. But in an attempt to control reality that you can't control, what we're seeing is someone who's literally inflicting blatant harm on themselves. And we go on.
I do have some regrets about the way I did it, but in the end, I'm happy the way I am.
Dr. Phil.
Now, just real quick, transpose this into the reality of gender ideology, where you have someone who, objectively may have harmed themselves more than taking their sight. They've cut things literally off their body, altering their God-intended hormonal ratios in their body. Then just imagine that scenario where everybody is cheering. Oh, you took your eyesight, good for you, that's brave. Let's tell kids they too can do that. But right now we're seeing an authentic reaction from the audience. Like you saw the audience face, like, what the hell? You see Dr. Phil, like he's not like, oh, you go girl, like good for you. This isn't being encouraged, which is appropriate. But when it comes to the other thing, that's being encouraged. But I would dare say this reaction, like you cut what off your body? This is the appropriate reaction.
With all due respect to Jewel, but I am having a really hard time sitting so close to someone who traumatized herself.
This lady's a doctor, by the way, the lady on the left. It's transposed to the gender reality. It might be different. Because this doctor is not going to receive any money for, blindness, transition surgery, and and you need hormones prescribed by me every day for the rest of your life. So there's no money to be made in blinding people or disabling transabled people. Actually, and at this time, I mentioned I've heard people cutting their limbs off because they identify as an amputee. I don't think doctors are doing that, because they take a Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm. So you got to cut your own arm off. You got to blind yourself, because any doctor that does that would have their license revoked like that. Hippocratic oath, first, do no harm. That's at play here. But on the other thing, doctors are like, we'll do harm because it's profitable and it's being encouraged at a woke cultural level. So we'll do harm. It's good for business. And instead of calling it harm and mutilation, let's call it affirming care. It's the same freaking thing going on, but two completely different reactions.
Who damaged herself. We took an oath in medicine to help people. We see horrible tragedies every single day as doctors, and people who would give anything to go back and restore their vision, their health.
This is the lady who said she's happy. She's happy, ladies and gentlemen.
Heart is beating out of my chest. I can't even make sense of the emotions I'm feeling, because to hear someone say, I've always felt I should be blind. Well, I've always felt I should be the Queen of England.
Woo! That's actually a pretty good analogy to drive the point home. She's not the Queen of England. She's always felt she should be, but she's not. And she seems like she's actually accepted that reality. That equals mental stability.
But I'm not going out to become the Queen of England. Well,
again, no reaction from this very happy person. That's the end of the video. Before we take a look at some other examples of what transabled people are doing, which again is the same ideology as the transgender thing, I will say this woman who blinded herself, she is an adult. I support her right to blind herself. That's part of freedom. Now, I think she should be protected from herself for a therapeutic period. If she had friends and family in her life, and I'm guessing she doesn't have much of a sense of belonging, probably hasn't since early childhood, ideally they would do some kind of intervention. And sometimes when someone needs to be protected from themselves, the most loving, caring thing to do is, even if it's against their will, get them into a facility that will do their best to help this person the way they need to be helped. resolve their inner struggles, trauma, instabilities. So ideally, that's what would happen first. But whether that happens and then she blinds herself or she just blinds herself, that's part of freedom. She has the right to do that. And I support her right. I'm not glad she did it. It'd be different if she was 14, if she was a child and blinding herself. It'd be like, no, you, dear child, you need to be protected from yourself. You are not able to do that. Sorry. Wait till you're 18 if you still want to blind yourself. Sounds like a really bad decision, but you'll have the right to do that, and you're going to have to live with the consequences of that. So inherently, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think there's plenty that's effed up about it. But nonetheless, just as someone who stands for freedom, I just want to declare that. I don't think this person's right should be taken away, or any transabled people's right should be taken away to, behave insanely, as long as they're not hurting other people. I wish they wouldn't do it for their own good, but they're doing it. And that's part of freedom. Now, I've for a while been wanting to do a video on this whole transabled topic, not because I think it's like a big epidemic that needs to be spoken out about, but because the transgender ideology is a big topic that needs to be spoken up about. And there's just so many parallels because it's the same thing. Clicking over here to cf.org. Transabled. Latest trans trend sees people identifying as disabled. Okay? A troubling societal issue called Transableism is attracting attention these days. Can't wait for this drag time story hour. Look at the guy who just cut off his leg. He's still bleeding. He's gonna read you Jack and the Beanstalk and you can be like him. Huh? Transableism is a newer term for BIID, or Body Integrity Identity Disorder. It's a disorder. Can you say gender dysmorphia? In which a person actually identifies as handicapped. By the way, newsflash, just because you identify as something doesn't mean that's what you are. You're welcome. The point of changing the identifier from a psychiatric condition to an advocacy term, transableism, I see what they're doing there. Instead of like having it labeled as an intense mental disorder as it is, we'll change it to an advocacy term. You are not gender dysmorphic, you are trans. You are not mentally ill, you are transabled. You are not a pedophile, you are a minor attracted person. See the correlation? So the point of changing the identifier from a psychiatric condition to an advocacy term is to harness the stunning cultural power of gender ideology to the cause of allowing doctors to treat BIID patients by amputating healthy limbs, snipping spinal cords for those who identify as paralyzed, or destroying eyesight. Okay, I just learned something. This is the first time I'm reading this article. So when they get it changed to an advocacy term, away from like a disease, a mental disorder, change it to an advocacy term, now doctors who don't have a soul, instead of the Hippocratic Oath preventing them from severeizing, if you will, the condition, now they can treat it. Now they can actually make it worse because the Hippocratic Oath says do no harm. Cool. What if we just switched the language? So now the language suggests, doctor, for cutting someone's leg off, you're not doing harm. You are doing affirming care. Okay. Man, I have a hard time calling that anything other than the devil's work. We know the medical industry has sold people's health wholesale for profit. The gender ideology is medical stuff that harms people, drugs that are addictive, destroy lives, destroy families. Drugs like, Vioxx, 60,000 people die, and then it's taken off the market. The medical industry has proven over and over again, they will happily sell your health out, sell your life out for their profit. Disclaimer, medicine also does some cool stuff. There are amazing doctors out there, but the industry is tainted with these bad actors. No question about that. Some of the persons mutilate themselves, others ask surgeons for an amputation or for the transection of their spinal cord. The site adds of the shocking steps some are taking. A North Carolina college student called Transableism a cry for attention. It's definitely a cry. Dylan Mulvaney, definitely a cry for mega attention. But it is without a doubt a cry. There is someone hurting inside who needs help. They probably have trauma from very early childhood. It is a cry. A lot of times when someone's in distress, they don't know how to vulnerably say, I need help with such and such. A lot of times they're in so much distress and it's so chronic, they don't know what the thing is and they don't know what the help is that they need. And therefore, they don't know how to ask for help. They don't know how to cry for help. But this is a sign. It's a cry for help. The 24-year-old told Fox News Digital, it's offensive to people who actually suffer from the condition that you say you need in order to be true to yourself. Well, is Dylan Mulvaney offensive to biological women? Oh, he is? Cool. Well, you shut up. You are transphobic. You are standing in the way of women's rights, you woman. He went on, it's embarrassing, and I don't know if you can be considered a serious human being if you alter your body like this instead of getting the appropriate mental help you need. Now this is interesting. In one case of BIID, person from Norway with a very Norwegian name, Jornd Victoria Almi, 53, a senior credit analyst in Oslo, Norway, identifies as disabled and uses a wheelchair, even though she has no physical handicap. So she hasn't cut her legs off or been surgically paralyzed. But here's what's interesting. Elmi is also transgender. Okay, for this person, well, when will enough be enough? You're trying to change your gender. You're trying to change your mobility status from able-bodied to handicap. Can we see this person needs help? Or are we going to advocate for this person to go further? Awesome, like wheelchair, awesome, cut your legs off. We could cut you off, amputate your whole body below the belly button. That would be great. Why don't we just beat you to a bloody pulp while we're at it? It's really hard to walk if you have a concussion. Let's beat the crap out of you for your benefit. It will be affirming care. Elmi, so the transgender, transabled wheelchair person from Norway, said on the morning TV program, Good Morning Norway, I'm guessing that's broadcast in Norway, in 2022 that it had been a lifelong wish to have been born a woman paralyzed from the waist down, the same source noted. Wow, what makes a person wish that? What internal feeling generated from unresolved trauma does that validate? In an even more shocking case, a 21-year-old in North Carolina, a woman who identified as blind actually took steps to destroy her own eyesight. Let's get to some truth. One Arizona internist, that's a doctor, called today's transableism a delusional disorder. In my opinion, both transgender and transabled persons suffer from a delusional disorder. Jane Orient, a general internist in Tucson, Arizona, said, it's hard to argue with that. It's actually easy to argue with. It's, dare I say, next to impossible to disprove, though. That's a doctor sharing a medical perspective on transgender and transableism. It's a delusional disorder. They're sharing that perspective from their medical opinion, without influence from activism, without influence from intimidation. What will I be labeled if I say the truth? Will my license be taken away? Am I going to get hate mail? No, it's pretty friggin' straightforward medical opinion. And she added, the oath of Hippocrates adjures physicians to do no harm. Mutilating the body is an objective harm, even if it makes the patient subjectively feel better. Can I get an amen? Can I read that again? Mutilating the body is an objective harm. True. Even if it makes the patient subjectively feel better. Do you get the message? So the North Carolina college student from above also said about today's trend of transableism, today I feel like people would even encourage mutilation for transabled people in order to be thought of as an ally. Here's the truth. Trying to help those people, not doing this, I'm not going to cut your limb off, but what I am going to do is try to get you the mental help that you need. That is a true ally. Someone who's like, cool, you want to be paralyzed? Let me just cut your spinal cord. That is not an ally. That is evil working with someone who says that they're your ally, with someone who you say is your ally. Scorpions are going to do what scorpions are going to do. They ain't your ally. Frog is your ally in that old analogy. Be a frog. So there you have it, a little coverage of a new phenomenon in identity politics, transableism. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with the parallels being, I don't know, the exact same thing with transableism and transgender ideology? Do you see a difference? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Transableism, I don't really know how relevant it is. Are they going to start indoctrinating kids in school? Little Johnny comes home from 3rd grade. He's like, son, where's your arm? The teacher helped me cut it off. We can learn a lot from transableism about today's transgender situation. I personally think God doesn't make mistakes. I think God allows us to feel adversity, sometimes a lot. How else do you get strong? Adversity is a gift from God. And sometimes adversity is, I'm not comfortable. Sometimes adversity is, here's what I want, here's what reality is, and they're freaking different. Awesome. That's adversity for you to look at. Not to alter reality, but for you to alter your internal state, to have enough self-acceptance to accept who you are in reality. I don't think God makes mistakes, but if gender ideology, if that was true, then we would admit God makes mistakes all the time. But your itty-bitty human mind with blue hair, apparently you know better than God. Or maybe God's way is correct and your thinking is incorrect. Let me know what you think in the comments. And by the way, if you're a fan of God, one of the absolute best-selling designs I've got in my merch shop is just this, Got God. I think we need more God. I think all these people we've been talking about in this video, they need a lot more God in their life. I think society as a whole, we need God, because without God's way, we have tyrannical ways that like to play God. But I think we can do better than that. I think the original version of God in the form of, well, God, not tyranny, not propaganda. I think that's what serves us best. So if you'd like to grab a Got God shirt or a tumbler or hat with Got God on it, you can check out awakenwithjp.com, the Freedom Shop. It's got God and all the best-selling classic designs to help you wear your thinking out loud. And with that said, my freedom-loving friend, look forward to seeing you on our next video. But until then, stay free.